This is Georgia wide receiver
Ladd McConkey.
And don't do it. I know you want to comp him to that little white slot wide receiver. Ladd McConkey could play on the outside.
Oh, yeah.
Shows up with 4.39 speed, 90th percentile agility. And for my money, I think that he is one of the best wide receivers exploding out of his breaks on in routes, out routes, and obviously can work down the field. You'll see him in motion. You'll see him used all over the place. Yes, he will kick inside the slot. But to me, we should view him as an outside wide receiver, somebody that can win downfield as well.
5'11 and a half, 186 pounds. The dude posted a 4.3940, which is the 86th percentile among draft prospects. His vertical and broad jumps were both above or average, if you want to put it that way. When I watch him, man, McConkey, there's zero fat to his game. You know, his movements are so intentional when you watch him in his routes, like the separation at the top off the break is so nice. It's an animated cut with, zero wasted movement. If there is someone in the direction he has to get to on an outside breaking route, he's so savvy with like this arm pull through that then he displaces them and gets to that spot. I think his route pacing and speed, he's not like constantly jamming the turbo button. Again, changing the gears in his routes, to me, really, really speaks to his understanding of the wide receiver position right now.
And he'll catch some of these corners not anticipating how fast he is. You'll see that on double moves on occasion where he'll score a long touchdown. There'll be some times where he'll stop after the catch, turn around, run the other way, and absolutely beat the angles that these DBs are chasing him down. I see the same thing with you. He runs with tempo on the outside in his route running, but if he wants to, when he's running at a full speed at a corner that's in off coverage, he is terrifying to guard. I see him win on outbreaking routes against outside leverage. I've seen him win on in-breaking routes against inside leverage because he can manipulate these guys back and forth. So yeah, he played 79% of his snaps on the outside, and I think that he can win that. For right now, people are kind of scared of Ladd McConkey, especially in dynasty drafts, because the production was low end. So I wanted to get to that real quick. For me, 22nd percentile age-adjusted production. He's a fourth-year player, a little bit older, but the couple caveats there. Obviously, Georgia, they're not passing the ball a ton because the offense they're in, he has this guy named Brock Bowers that he's competing with. He's had some minor injuries, nothing too major, but a couple minor injuries every single year. And if you look at it per route, per target, he led college football last year in EPA per route. Led everybody. And then he was number 2 in success rate per target. So whenever he needed to make a play, Ladd McConkey was absolutely able to do that. And I think that he's one of the craftiest wide receivers. And then when you show up running sub 4.4, that's why I think you can actually envision this guy potentially as a late round 1 grade.
119 total receptions in 3 seasons. As you put it, Brock Bowers was their primary pass catcher. Brock Bowers also had 30 screen targets in 2023. Compare that to Ladd McConkey. He had 7. In 2022, both had 21 screen targets, but Brock Bowers had 50 slot targets compared to Ladd McConkey's 25. Again, McConkey was not Georgia's slot guy. That was Lovett. That was Bowers. So to be honest with all of you, Ladd McConkey had to do the difficult stuff. Yeah. He was not fed the easy stuff. He had to run the legit big boy, intermediate, and downfield routes. And with that said, in 2023, 13 of his 30 catches went for 15 plus yards.
Wow.
20 of 59 the year before that. As you said, he is 5th in yards per route run in this entire class. So again, totally understand that his receiving numbers over the last 3 seasons, 478, 762, 447. That is not going to come close to some of the alphas that we have in this awesome wide receiver class. But again, when you whittle it down to when he was given opportunities, he totally shined in those areas. And Hayden, I actually think he's sneaky good after the catch.
Sneaky devil,
if you want to put it that way. Like, we've highlighted his athleticism, but if you look at his zone opportunities, he will catch it. And then when a defensive back is trying to close on his angle, he'll give them this outside dead leg, which then forces the defensive back to overrun it, then reach with an arm tackle. And frequently Ladd McConkey is running through that arm tackle to pick up an extra 3, 4, 5 yards.
It sounds crazy, but the yards after the catch stuff kind of reminds me of like what Garrett Wilson was able to do. Now, Garrett Wilson's better at the catch point because he's maybe a little bit better of an athlete. But if you look at Garrett Wilson, Ladd McConkey, and then another guy, Chris Olave, if you just look at their height, weight, speed, and where they were used on the field, we're looking at very similar players. Obviously, those guys were more productive than Ladd McConkey is. And I think they're both of those guys a little bit better at the catch point. If I'm looking for a flaw for Ladd McConkey, to me, it is a little bit of that smaller catch radius than some of the other guys that are working down the field. I think there's a couple times against press coverage he could be knocked off. The other part about this is when you're watching last year's tape, he was dealing with an ankle injury, especially in that Alabama game. So I think that you're gonna have to move him off the line of scrimmage. He's not gonna be an X wide receiver. No one's expecting to be slot, motion, bunch sets, flanker. All that stuff will kind of minimize some of these size issues that we have with Ladd McConkey. But we've seen a player like Chris Olave, he's basically used in the same exact way as Ladd McConkey. He can go round one. So that's why I'm not ruling out Ladd McConkey as a round one guy right now.
Yeah, I'm sure producer Waves has already thrown it up on the screen, but Chris Olave is my comparison. It's almost the exact same size. And when you look at college targeted passer rating against man versus zone coverage, Ladd McConkey and Chris Olave are right next to each other. Like they really do play a very, very similar game. It's almost like unassuming until you watch like drive in and drive out, and like they are the dudes. Like they are the guys. It's not overly animated like a Garrett Wilson can be, like a Stephon Diggs can be. And it's not like, oh man, there he is, such a explosive burner after the catch. But there's just the complete package there. And hey, and I think some people, either because of his skin tone or because of this production, people might like worry that this is a profile that might give them concerns if a player was like a below average athlete, but he's not. At worst, he's an average athlete. And in many ways, he's a great average athlete. He's a great athlete.
Right? Yeah, come on.
And so I don't think that this is his ceiling that he has reached either. Just more opportunities is going to extend his ceiling on top of that for me.
Yeah, I think, like you said, he's winning on the toughest routes. Hopefully in the NFL, he's going to kick inside, get a couple more easier routes. The two quick names, Tyler Lockett moved into the inside, and I think that he has a little bit of that. And then I think at worst, you can use him like Zay Flowers, who's even smaller and less athletic than Ladd McConkey, where you can kind of give him the free stuff. Then obviously he can win down the field as well.
I will say a huge difference that I saw in Zay Flowers' game versus Ladd McConkey's is Zay Flowers, when he catches the ball, he loves to square up to defenders and then win after the catch. Ladd McConkey has that JSN, Don Kincaid style of, I'm going to sit in this zone, catch the ball, spin with that momentum away from where the defensive back is. And again, in one movement, go and pick up some extra yards. And if you question at all his athleticism, go and watch routes that are developing 10 plus yards down the field. He is the fastest Georgia pass catcher doing any of them. And those are 5-star Georgia athletes that he is teammates with.
Yeah, I completely agree. So ultimately, he's my wide receiver 5. I think the top 4 guys, they just have too freaky of total tools, especially with their size. So Ladd McConkey doesn't have that. But to me on tape, I think that he's a round one guy. I think that he would have been right there with Jordan Addison and JSN in last year's class in the mix to be the top wide receiver. It's a deep class, so maybe he's a second round pick. We'll see where he ends up there, but do not just put him into that bucket of Wes Welkers and Danny Amendolas. Those guys just do not have the same straight line speed that Ladd McConkey has.
I forgot to mention this, but I do have a major concern about him in contested situations. Like when he does have to fight through contact and adjust to a football in the air. I think the timing is off. I think that his launch point to go up and try to jump into these situations is off too. He kind of looks lost in those situations, to be honest. So like, hopefully he goes to a quarterback that knows when he creates separation, he can throw it to the area of open space rather than underthrowing it. Like we kind of saw this year with Georgia at times. And obviously with Stetson Bennett at times too. And again, had some brutal drops, I thought, back in 2022, which also would have accentuated some of his counting stats. But he doesn't have to be great at everything. He can be great at some things and still be super productive. And I would even like him to be that speed, fly, motion guy at times, because we know he has that athleticism. And I don't think Georgia used him enough in that area too.
Completely agree.
All right. That does it. Go right now. Be part of the 30%. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and check out all of our other draft prospect videos on the channel. The next one is coming up at you. Talk to you next time.